For years, Earth had been the favorite subject of mockery across the stars. When humanity finally broke through the light barrier and stepped into the wider galaxy, they were not welcomed as explorers or pioneers, but as amusing newcomers, treated with patronizing smiles and veiled laughter. The other races of the galactic concord, some with histories reaching back thousands of years, saw humans as primitive creatures clinging to their noisy engines and childish ideals. Earth's diplomats were ignored at council meetings, their science dismissed as outdated, and their fleets, though carefully designed, were seen as slow and unrefined. Alien broadcasters aired shows where actors in rubbery human masks stumbled through political negotiations or fired toy-like weapons at holographic monsters, drawing roaring laughter from multi-limbed audiences. Even Earth's allies smiled politely but never offered real support. Behind closed doors, they called humans a species of bark with no bite. But not all humans were blind to this ridicule. Deep within Earth's strategic command, people like Commander Lena Rourke watched, listened, and remembered. Rourke had served in silence while the galaxy laughed. She had buried friends who died in accidental border disputes and counted the number of times human colonies received delayed aid from supposed allies. She knew the galaxy didn't hate Earth, it simply didn't fear it. And in space, respect often came only after fear. Then came the day the Helix 3 station went dark. Located far from Earth, on the edge of Graal space, the outpost had been monitoring deep space signals. It was routine, unarmed, and carried a crew of 22 scientists, 6 of them barely out of training. One moment it was transmitting data, the next, nothing. No distress call, no explosion, just pure silence. The Galactic Council blamed a solar flare. The Graal Dominion claimed ignorance. But Earth received one thing before the station vanished completely: a corrupted transmission filled with static and a single human scream, cut short in the middle of a breath. Rourke listened to that scream more times than she could count. She played it in the darkness of her quarters, letting its sharp pain fuel the thoughts racing in her mind. The Council had already declared the matter closed, refusing to investigate further. They called it regrettable, another small loss in the dangerous reaches of space. But Rourke knew better. The Graal had sent a message, not with words, but with silence, and she understood it clearly. Earth's people were nothing to them. Expendable, weak, unworthy of even an explanation. That was the final straw. Rourke returned to Earth and accessed files buried so deep in the archives that even the current defense minister didn't know of them. Files labeled Project Revenant. It had been created during humanity's darkest wars, a secret program to prepare for the day when talking failed and the stars turned hostile. Within the black walls of hidden shipyards floated machines that had never seen combat, ships that ignored the rules set by the Concord, weapons deemed too dangerous, too cruel, even by human standards. But Rourke wasn't interested in being polite anymore. She gave the order, and the black ships stirred to life for the first time in decades. Engineers worked without questions. Soldiers volunteered without hesitation. No speeches were made. There was no grand announcement to the galaxy. Only silence. The same kind of silence the Graal had given to Helix 3. And in that silence, humanity began to prepare not for diplomacy, but for war. Rourke sent one final message to the Galactic Council, brief and without emotion: "We are retrieving our people. Do not interfere." No one took it seriously. The Grail scoffed and aired another comedy skit, showing humans getting lost in their own supply routes. The Council chuckled in their chambers. But deep in the void, humanity's answer was forming, cold, calculated, and far deadlier than the galaxy had ever imagined. And soon, the same stars that once laughed would watch in silence as Earth rose, not to be feared, but to be remembered. In the cold, forgotten corners of the solar system, far beyond the reach of planetary traffic or curious eyes, massive hidden shipyards began to pulse with energy as systems long dormant flickered to life, one by one. The silence that had once shrouded these facilities was now broken by the hum of awakening power. Commander Lena Rourke stood aboard a high-security platform as the first of Earth's black ships emerged from their hangars like shadows given form. They were unlike anything in the official Terran Defense Fleet, larger, darker and built not for patrol or display, but for silent, precise destruction. These were vessels forged in secret during Earth's final world wars, created in case the galaxy ever turned hostile. Their existence was denied by every administration since, hidden behind deep code authorization and blacked-out reports. But now, with Helix 3 gone and the Grawl laughing once again, Rourke knew it was time to show the galaxy what Earth had never truly forgotten how to survive when no one else cared. The lead ship, named TDF Wrathborn, was a silent giant armed with railguns capable of firing slugs at near relativistic speed, torpedoes filled with folding antimatter, and stealth drives that made it invisible to most known scans. Each black ship had been designed with two ideas in mind. As the engineers finished final checks, Rourke moved through the command bridge, issuing direct orders. No announcement was made to the Council. No declaration of war. Earth had learned the hard way that noise meant little and the void results did. The fleet gathered at a hidden jump point, one that had been charted decades ago but never officially recorded. Their target was a minor Grawl listening post, close to the suspected location of Helix 3's remains, a base not important enough to be heavily defended, but valuable enough to hold information. Rourke's plan was not total destruction, not yet. She wanted answers before Ash. As the countdown reached 0, the black ships vanished into jump space, leaving behind only the cold light of distant stars. When they emerged, there was no warning. The Grawl post didn't even have time to raise a shield. A focused EMP strike cut off its power, followed by kinetic rounds that punched through reinforced metal-like paper. Within minutes, the station floated in ruin, lights dead, systems offline, its crew stunned and afraid. Human Marines boarded with practiced silence, sweeping corridors without firing a single shot. The Grawl commander begged for his life before offering access codes and location logs. Rourke didn't reply. She only took the data and left him to watch as his station slowly drifted toward a nearby moon's gravity well. It would burn up in the atmosphere before anyone could mount a rescue. As the Black Fleet jumped again back into deep space, whispers began to spread. First among smugglers, then traders, and finally among Concord officials who reviewed strange sensor glitches and missing signals. They didn't want to believe it. Earth didn't have ships like this. They weren't supposed to. But denial couldn't last. Within days, a Grawl convoy was ambushed and left spinning in vacuum. Only one ship survived, its entire crew unconscious from nerve gas pumped in through breached ventilation. It drifted back into Grawl space, still bearing Earth's flag scorched into the side of its hull. Panic began to crack the mask of arrogance the Grawl wore. Their analysts combed through every known Terran design and found nothing that matched the black ship's signatures. Their generals called emergency meetings. Their spies tried to uncover Earth's secret, but it was too late. The black ships didn't wait for diplomacy or approval. They moved like ghosts, hitting communication hubs, border outposts, and unmanned facilities. No colony was touched. No civilians were harmed. The message was clear. Earth wasn't attacking planets, it was removing threats. Quietly, efficiently, and without apology. Inside the Council, chaos grew. Some members demanded sanctions. Others tried to open dialogue, but no one could agree on who had control anymore. The old power balance had been shaken by a species they thought could barely navigate their own system. And now, those same humans were striking fear into battle-hardened admirals. Back on Earth, the people did not cheer. There were no parades. The news reported only classified military operations. But behind closed doors, governments watched Rourke's actions with a mix of fear and pride. For the first time, humanity wasn't asking for a seat at the table, it was taking it. On the bridge of the Wrathborn, as new data revealed the last known location of Helix 3's core, Rourke gave her next order. They would find whatever remained. And when they did, she would make sure the Grawl and the galaxy never forgot what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The black ships, silent as ever, turned their course toward the shadows of war, and the stars around them seemed to grow colder. The remains of Helix 3 were found floating in the orbit of a dead mining moon on the edge of Grawl-controlled space, not by accident, but by careful tracking of corrupted data logs and secret star charts recovered from the Graal listening post. The station was no longer whole, its structure torn apart, its metal twisted like paper under great force, and its modules scattered like debris across the silent vacuum. At first, it looked like just another lost station, until Rourke's team located a hidden chamber in one of the shattered modules, still intact due to emergency shielding. What they found inside changed everything. The walls were covered in blood, but not human blood. Graal markings were smeared across the surfaces in panic, as if the attackers had turned on each other. In the center of the room sat a data core, still active, flickering weakly. When decrypted, it revealed a secret lab disguised as part of Helix 3's power systems. There were video logs, grainy, raw, and horrifying. The Grail had taken the crew alive and used them for experiments, testing how human minds reacted under extreme conditions, pushing them past pain thresholds, exposing them to artificial environments designed to break their sanity. 6 of the victims were young trainees, barely adults, and their screams echoed through the chamber as the footage played. Rourke stood in silence, fists clenched, eyes unmoving. She did not cry. She did not speak. She only stared as the last log showed a Graal scientist laughing before saying, "They're just humans. What use are they but to serve?" That line sealed the Graal's fate. Rourke transmitted the entire data core to the Galactic Council, unedited. No warnings. No filters. Billions of people across the galaxy saw the truth. They saw the arrogance, the cruelty, and the cold amusement of the Graal as they tortured people who only came to observe distant stars. For decades, Earth had been laughed at, called weak and soft-hearted. But now the galaxy saw that weakness wasn't the same as kindness, and kindness was not permission to be treated like animals. The public outcry was immediate. Protests broke out across neutral planets. Former allies of the Graal quietly shut their ports. Others tried to distance themselves from the event. The Graal responded as expected, with more arrogance. They claimed the footage was staged, denied all involvement, and blamed Earth for emotional manipulation. They believed their power still made them untouchable. But they were wrong. Rourke didn't wait for more excuses. She activated Phase 2. Within 72 hours, 4 Graal military outposts went completely dark. Their command centers were found empty, their databanks wiped, and their officers missing. The black ships were no longer striking small targets, they were removing pieces of the Graal war machine itself. Then came the turning point. On the 3rd day, a Graal garrison world named Vigran 6, known for housing over 20,000 troops and a key weapons depot, was hit with precision orbital bombardment. Not a single civilian was harmed. Not a single city was destroyed. Only the military base cut off from communications, disabled by precision strikes, and reduced to rubble in under 10 minutes. Surveillance drones showed the ships hovering in low orbit, unmoving, black silhouettes against the blue atmosphere, before vanishing without a trace. The Graal, for the first time in centuries, felt fear. And that fear spread fast. Their broadcasts stopped making jokes about humans. Their leaders stopped using the term dirt dwellers. Their ships began changing patrol routes, avoiding known Terran zones. Some officers even surrendered early, afraid they would be next. The Galactic Council called for an emergency session, but Earth didn't attend. Rourke's message to them was clear and short. Earth does not seek war. But we will never be your punchline again. That single line was played across networks for days. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was simply truth, and the galaxy understood it. In private, council members argued over how this happened. How a planet they once called backward now held the power to strike fear into fleets that had ruled space for centuries. And in every conversation, one truth kept returning: they had underestimated humans. The Grail homeworld, sensing the shift, placed its military on high alert. Its leaders issued orders to intercept any Terran ship within 1,000 light-years. But by then, Earth was already one step ahead. Rourke had sent scouts into deep Graal space, not to attack, but to collect. She wanted information maps, supply lines, command hierarchies. She wasn't waging war blindly. She was building a path, one that would lead straight to the heart of the empire that mocked Earth's place among the stars. The suspense grew across the galaxy. Traders whispered of shadowy vessels that could destroy a fleet before it could lock weapons. Smugglers spoke of entire spaceports gone silent. Civilians feared the silence more than the destruction, because Terran strikes were never messy. They were controlled, clean, efficient silent storms that came and vanished like nightmares. The Concord tried to send envoys, but Earth remained quiet. Humanity had spoken enough in the past, and no one had listened. Now their silence was louder than any broadcast. On the bridge of the Wrathborn, Rourke stood before her crew and said just one thing: "Let the stars remember what happens when you teach kindness with cruelty." And with that, the ships turned toward the Graal core sectors. The final chapters had not yet been written, but their title was clear across every system, in every language. On every screen, humanity is no longer the joke of the galaxy. It had become the answer. The black ships crossed into the heart of Graal territory, like a shadow slipping through cracks in the wall of a fortress, unseen but ever present, and every system they passed began to tremble under the weight of a fear they had never known. Commander Lena Rourke no longer operated in secret. Her strikes were not random attacks, but carefully chosen moves in a war of meaning, each blow designed not only to cripple, but to send a message. Earth was done whispering. The silence the galaxy had once mocked had become humanity's deadliest weapon. Graal patrols, once proud and dominant, now fled at the first sign of sensor disturbance. Massive defense arrays once used to intimidate smaller species now sat cold, their operators unsure whether to shoot at shadows or run for escape pods. And still, Rourke didn't order an invasion. She wanted no planets, no territory, only justice. At the edge of the Graal capital system, 3 Terran stealth cruisers disabled a major communications nexus without firing a single shot. A coordinated cyber assault shut down defense protocols, hijacked satellites, and sent every screen in the Graal Empire a single image: a human child from Helix 3, smiling in a family photo with the words REMERHER stamped in blood-red text beneath it. The image disappeared after 10 seconds, replaced by live footage of Graal commanders who had been captured in earlier raids, now standing trial on an isolated orbital court run by Earth. Rourke made sure the trial was broadcast galaxy-wide, uncut and uncensored. The evidence was undeniable: the screams, the cruelty, the laughter of Graal scientists experimenting on helpless human researchers. No lies could cover this now. As billions watched, the convicted Graal officers were sentenced not with death, but with permanent exile to a dark zone moon where no rescue would come. It was a message: Earth did not need revenge. It needed remembrance. The Graal government, in a desperate move, tried to rally its citizens with angry speeches and propaganda. Their emperor called humanity a flicker in the dark, soon to be crushed. But even his voice wavered as news came in: another shipyard lost, another secret lab found and exposed, another fleet refusing to engage Terran forces. Some Graal soldiers began surrendering early, refusing orders. Entire battalions pretended to be missing when Terran forces approached. And then, in a move that shocked the galaxy, a senior Graal admiral defected. He brought with him classified coordinates, access codes, and a secret: the Graal had been building a weapon in deep space, one designed to control minds using ancient tech from a long-extinct race. It had been the reason behind Helix 3's destruction. The humans had detected traces of it, and the Graal panicked. But the weapon wasn't finished. It still floated near a binary star system, protected by prototype drones and a skeleton crew. Rourke's face hardened when she saw the schematics. She realized that this wasn't just about human lives anymore. The Graal were trying to enslave entire species, and Earth's silence had to be broken, loud and final. The Black Fleet jumped without pause. Their course was set, their target locked. As they emerged in the light of the binary stars, the weapon came into view: a massive floating station with tendrils of metal stretched like claws and a core pulsing with energy note, meant for mortal hands. Drones activated the moment Terran ships arrived, but they were no match. One by one, they were wiped out by precision strikes, AI-guided weapons, and maneuver so fast they left sensor trails. The few defenders tried to call for help, but their signals were jammed. Inside the station, Grail engineers scrambled to activate the core, but it was too late. Terran Marines breached the station's outer hull in less than 6 minutes. No speeches. No mercy. They moved through corridors like ghosts, disabling systems, isolating threats, and heading straight for the control room. Rourke, aboard the Wrathborn, gave the order herself: burn the silence. At her command, the station's core was overloaded with feedback from its own power systems. The weapon began to collapse from the inside, energy arcing through its frame, lighting up the stars like a second sun. The fleet pulled back just in time as the weapon tore itself apart in a brilliant silent explosion. No sound, just pure light, stretching across the void. That light reached Gruul space within minutes, caught on every sensor, seen by every citizen. It was the final nail in the coffin of arrogance. The weapon they had built to control others had been destroyed by the very people they once mocked. Back in the council chambers, silence reigned. No one laughed. No one spoke against Earth. Even the most prideful species lowered their heads, realizing they had witnessed something more than war. They had seen what happens when patience runs out, when kindness is met with cruelty, when silence turns into fire. Rourke stood alone in her quarters after the mission, staring out at the stars. Her crew celebrated quietly, knowing the hardest part was done. The black ships had not brought chaos, they had brought balance. They reminded the galaxy that every species, no matter how small, had its breaking point. And when humanity reached theirs, they did not roar. They whispered, they waited, and then they burned everything in their path until only truth remained. Rourke did not smile. She did not need to. Earth's voice had been heard not with words, but with actions. And in that silence now burned respect, earned in the ash of arrogance. The galaxy held its breath as the black ships moved no further, hovering at the edge of Gruul core space like silent sentinels. After the destruction of the mind control weapon near the binary stars, something had changed not only among the Grail, but across every intelligent species watching from afar. The humans had not demanded surrender. They had not asked for territory, wealth, or tribute. They had come, struck with precision, exposed the cruelty behind the masks of civility, and walked away without asking for applause. And that frightened the powerful more than war itself. Because they realized that Earth's strength was not just in its ships or weapons, but in its restraint, its patience, and its deep memory of being humiliated for far too long. Inside the council chambers, emergency meetings were called. The Graal leadership was in ruins, split between those who wanted peace and those who still believed they could erase Earth with enough force. But no fleets were left untouched. No defenses were unbroken. Their pride had become ash. Commander Rourke, sitting aboard the TDF Wrathborn, knew it was time. She summoned her crew, activated the deep comms relay, and sent a live transmission to the entire galaxy, not with threats, but with terms. Her face appeared on every screen, calm, composed, and firm. "We do not ask for your surrender," she said. "We ask that you never forget." She listed the names of the 23 men and women lost on Helix 3, not as martyrs, but as proof that humans had come to the stars in peace and had been met with chains and fire. Then came the terms, simple and sharp. No more human colonies to be touched without invitation, no more jokes at the cost of Terran dignity and council records, no more humans denied access to technology or trade under old stereotypes. Any attack on Earth would be treated not as a military mistake, but as an act of extermination and answered in full. The council did not argue. The Graal did not respond. No one had the strength anymore. The silence that followed was not from fear, but from realization. These were not the same humans who once begged for approval. These were descendants of survivors, of people who had faced extinction on their own planet and still built rockets, cured plagues, and reached the stars while carrying their scars like armor. In private, species who once mocked Earth now studied human history closely, wondering how they missed the signs. The wars, the collapses, the comebacks. Earth had been hardened by fire long before it ever left its atmosphere. The black ships began to pull back slowly, their mission complete. Each ship left behind beacons unarmed, silent, and glowing with Earth's flag and the words we remember etched into their surface. Rourke returned to Earth not as a hero, but as a reminder of what silence could do when pushed too far. She gave no speeches, attended no parades. Her report to Terran High Command was simple and final: they will not laugh again. Across human space, colonies felt pride not in vengeance, but in the knowledge that their voice now mattered. Children no longer learned about alien superiority. They learned how Earth endured, how kindness had been mistaken for weakness, and how they corrected that mistake not with hatred. On the Graal homeworld, the Emperor was forced to resign, replaced by moderates who promised peace. Statues once raised in pride were taken down in shame. History books were rewritten. And on planets light years away, where humans had once been treated like second-class visitors, doors began to open. Trade deals improved. Diplomatic missions were offered. And though some gestures were made out of fear, others came from genuine respect. Because the galaxy finally understood, Earth would not rule. It would not conquer, but it would never again be a bystander to its own humiliation. Rourke, older now, retired quietly to a moon outpost near Saturn, where she spent her days watching the stars she had once traveled through as both soldier and symbol. The black ships were hidden once more, scattered across distant systems, watching, waiting, not as invaders, but as guardians of the peace their silence had bought. And though many in the galaxy moved on, building again, laughing again, somewhere deep in their minds they remembered the images of Earth's rise, the calm voice of a commander who did not need to shout to be heard, and the fact that, in a galaxy built on arrogance, it was silence, calculated, cold, and unshaken, that burned the loudest. In the end, the galaxy did not remember Earth for war or for conquest. It remembered Earth for the day it spoke, not with weapons first, but with truth. And for the day it made the stars listen on its own terms.